Today I will tell you about 5 traps that seem obvious at first glance, but actually lead you to failure. This is where their danger lies. They seem right. These ideas are commonly found in the community of preparers. Your neighbor, who is into preparation, would swear by their effectiveness. You will encounter them in articles and videos. But based on over a decade of experience and many mistakes I prefer not to recall, I can say that these so-called sound approaches waste your time, money, and real readiness. Let's start with the biggest trap that almost every beginner falls into. And honestly, it took me years to realize it. Trap number 1 is the purchase of readiness. We are told, stock up on gear, fill your pantry, buy the best equipment, and you will be ready. It sounds logical, doesn't it? If you have a year's supply of dried food, a fancy emergency bag, and all the survival gadgets recommended by online stores, you seem to be on the right track. But that's not the case. Not at all. In 2014, I met a man at an exhibition who spent nearly $20,000 on equipment. He had the very best. His garage resembled a sports equipment store mixed with a military depot. He proudly showed me his equipment. I asked him a simple question. Can you start a fire without matches? He couldn't. Can you purify water without your expensive filter? No. Did he know how to navigate without GPS? No idea. This man bought all the solutions that money could offer, but he didn't invest in what cannot be bought: skills. 6 months later, we went on a weekend hike together. Nothing extraordinary. His tent cost $1,500, but he couldn't set it up in the wind. His expensive filter clogged the very next day because he didn't know to filter the sediment first. His high-tech lighter proved useless in his inexperienced hands when the conditions weren't perfect. In the meantime, I lit a fire using a ferro rod, set up my simple tent shelter in 10 minutes, and obtained clean water using a mini filter and a bandana. My gear cost perhaps a tenth of his, but I knew how to use it. Here lies the trap. Shopping feels like progress. When you buy something, your dopamine levels rise. You feel successful. You look at your possessions and think, yes, I'm ready. But things without skills are just expensive junk. And when everything goes wrong, this junk won't save you. The truth is that readiness is 50% knowledge, 30% skills, and only 20% equipment. Note that equipment takes the smallest part. Nevertheless, it is here that most people spend 90% of their budget on preparation. Think of it this way. If I threw you into the forest with only a knife and a metal container, could you survive for 3 days? If your house were to burn down right now and you lost everything, could you ensure the safety and feeding of your family? If the answer is no, then no gear in your garage will help you. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy gear. I say that you should only acquire it after mastering the skills to use it. Learn to start a fire before buying expensive lighters. Practice purifying water with simple methods before investing in costly filters. Master navigation with a map and compass before relying on GPS. And here is what no one talks about. When you first develop skills, you actually save money on gear because you know exactly what you need and what is just a marketing trick. You will be able to distinguish a tool that solves a real problem from a gadget that someone is trying to sell you. So I want you to ask yourself before buying the next piece of gear, do I have the skills to use it? Have I practiced without it? Can I accomplish this task with what I already have? If you can't answer these questions affirmatively, put away your wallet and focus on learning. Trap number 2 is storing ingredients that you have never cooked with. This concerns me personally, as I found myself in this situation for 3 years. I bought rice, a lot of rice, 22.5 kilograms, beans, wheat grains, and dried lentils. I felt very prepared. I had calories for days, even months. The calculations on paper looked excellent. Each bag could feed my family for weeks. My pantry resembled a small grocery store, but there was one small problem. I had no idea how to cook all this so that my family would want to eat it. The awakening came during the winter storm of 2016. We lost power for 5 days. A perfect opportunity to use our supplies, right? I took out rice and beans, proud of my foresight. My wife asked how I planned to cook it, and then I realized that I had never cooked dried beans from scratch. I didn't know they needed to be soaked for several hours. I didn't know they would take an eternity to cook without a pressure cooker. I had no spices or ingredients to make them tasty, rather than just a sad dish on a plate. In the end, we ate cold canned soup and muesli bars because my food supplies turned out to be nearly useless. My children took one bite of my experiment with plain rice and beans and refused to eat more. My wife gave me a look that said, "We'll talk about this later." That's when I learned the bitter truth. Storing food is not about quantity, it's about suitability. You may have a lot of wheat grains, but if you don't have a mill and haven't practiced baking, you are just keeping expensive birdseed. That's what no one says. Your taste buds don't care that you are in a crisis. Your children do not start loving foods they have never tried just because there is no electricity. Your digestive system does not adapt to a completely unfamiliar diet overnight. In fact, stress in an emergency situation makes everyone more finicky, not less. I spoke with people who bought boxes of frozen food without trying a single portion beforehand. When they finally opened them during a real emergency, it turned out that their families hated the taste. Others stocked up on hundreds of kilograms of food that they had a slight allergy to or that caused them digestive issues. One acquaintance stored 25 kilograms of powdered milk, only to remember in a crisis moment that his wife was lactose intolerant. The solution is simple but requires discipline. You need to use your supplies. Not all, of course, but you need to update them regularly. Once a month, prepare a dish using only stored products. No tricks. No trips to the store for ingredients. Only what you have. This does 3 things. First, you will quickly realize what is missing. You may realize you have rice but no seasoning. You may find you have pasta but forgot the sauce, or you have flour but no yeast or baking powder. Second, you will gain skills in using your supplies. You will learn how long it takes to prepare, which combinations work, how to cook dishes that people will actually eat. You will find shortcuts and methods that are important when resources are limited. And thirdly, which is extremely important, you will learn that your family will not eat while you still have time to make changes. There is no point in storing food that will remain untouched because no one can eat it. I learned to store 3 types of food: staple foods that we already eat regularly and simply buy in larger quantities, comfort dishes that may not be the healthiest but lift the spirits, and long-term supplies that I have worked on and know how to make delicious. In my cupboard, there are now pasta, rice, canned tomatoes, beans, flour, sugar, salt, oil, and essential spices. We use all of this weekly. I naturally restock them. I have comforting products like cocoa powder, popcorn kernels, and coffee, things that make hard times more bearable. And I have supplies. But now, I have recipes. I tested the ingredients to make them edible and know how to use them. Another point about food storage that will save you from many problems. Write down your recipes, not in your head, not on a phone that can break. Write them on paper and keep them with your supplies. Include those that require cooking from scratch and those that use your stock. When stress overwhelms you and your mind is scattered, you won't remember the ratio of water to rice or how to make cookies from flour. Believe me. The point is, stored food that you can't or don't want to eat is just expensive junk taking up space. Test everything now while the stakes are low. Your future self will thank you. Trap number 3 is ignoring everyday misfortunes. Let's talk about what really destroys people's lives. It's not zombies, electromagnetic pulses, or even natural disasters in most cases. It's the mundane things. Themes that do not create exciting content for YouTube or gear reviews. I face this constantly. People are obsessed with gas masks and protective suits, while they are just one medical bill away from losing their homes. People buy tactical gear and survival goods while being in credit card debt and having zero savings for emergencies. Enterprising individuals with shelters full of supplies lack proper insurance coverage. Here is a statistic that should scare you more than any apocalypse scenario. More than half of Americans cannot handle unexpected expenses of $500 without going into debt. $500. This is not end-of-the-world money. This is car repair, a household appliance breakdown, a minor medical issue. Do you know what destroys more lives than hurricanes and earthquakes combined? Layoffs, medical emergencies, house fires, car accidents, divorces. These are real disasters. These are the things that are statistically most likely to happen to you. In 2018, I learned this lesson from my own experience. I spent thousands preparing. I had food supplies, barrels of water, emergency backpacks, everything necessary. And then I lost my job, a completely unexpected corporate reorganization. Suddenly, all these resources became useless because I couldn't pay the mortgage. My lavish preparations didn't help because I neglected the most fundamental thing: financial stability. I had no savings for 6 months. I did not have adequate insurance. I did not diversify my sources of income. I spent money on things instead of building real security. This experience taught me that the priorities of preparation for most people are inverted. Your foundation, the absolute basis of readiness, is financial stability. This means having savings for emergencies, proper insurance, low debt levels, and preferably multiple sources of income. Against this backdrop, the essentials are food, water, first aid, and basic supplies, Only after securing these should you consider more complex preparations. Think of it this way. If you lose your job tomorrow, will your 50 buckets of flour help keep your home? If you have a medical emergency, will your survival kit cover the hospital bill? If your car breaks down and you can't get to work, will your backpack help you? The answer is obvious. No. Nevertheless, I see people with overflowing credit cards buying more gear. I see families with zero emergency funds spending hundreds on freeze-dried food. The logic here is completely reversed. This is what real preparedness looks like. You have savings for 3 to 6 months. You have health insurance, car insurance, home insurance, and life insurance. You have a plan in case of temporary loss of income. Important documents are organized and accessible, and you have minimized your debts. This is not exciting preparation. No one makes viral videos about funding an individual retirement account or reviewing their insurance policy. But these are the things that will truly protect you from the disasters you are likely to face. I know a man who spent 15 years preparing for an economic crisis. He had gold and silver bars, weapons, and a year's worth of food. But one day his house burned down. He lost everything. The insurance turned out to be insufficient because he let it expire to save money on additional supplies. He had gold bars, but no roof over his head. It was then he realized that financial preparation prevents more disasters than it responds to. Here is what I want you to do. Before buying another item or a box of groceries, ask yourself 3 questions. Do I have at least $1,000 for emergencies? Do I have high-interest debts? Is my insurance sufficient? If you answered yes to the question about debts and no to the other 2, your next purchase for preparedness should be aimed at paying off debts, creating an emergency fund, or improving insurance. I understand, this isn't fun. It doesn't seem like preparedness. Rather, it is the boring responsibility of an adult. But here is the truth. This boring responsibility is the most important preparation you will ever make. Because when real disasters strike, and they surely will, your financial foundation will keep everything else from collapsing. Dear things and supplies are good, but only after you build a foundation. Don't prepare for unlikely scenarios while ignoring the more probable ones. This is not preparation. It's fantasy. Trap number 4 is creating a library of unread books and unwatched videos. I am about to say something that touches many of us. You know that stack of survival books you plan to read? The collection of YouTube videos you saved in playlists labeled Watch Later? Those downloaded PDF files on topics ranging from first aid to home improvement? Yes. Their presence does not mean you know them. This may be the most insidious trap because it seems that you are doing something useful. You are gathering information. You are creating a library. You tell yourself that when the time comes, you will have everything you need at hand. But that is not the case. Let me tell you what happens in a real emergency situation. Stress levels rise sharply. The ability to perceive new information drops rapidly. Decision-making becomes clouded. This is not the time when you want to read instructions for the first time. It's not the time to watch YouTube videos on how to purify water or treat a wound. I used to be the king of downloading and forgetting. I had gigabytes of survival PDFs, hundreds of saved videos, and shelves of books I intended to read. I felt informed because I had access to knowledge. But during one of the trips to nature, my friend severely cut his hand, and it needed immediate help. I had a first aid manual in my backpack. I had never read it. I stood, flipping through pages with bloody hands, trying to understand how to treat the wound while he bled out, and it dawned on me. This information was useless because I didn't know it by heart. Fortunately, there was someone in our group with real first aid experience. He handled the situation calmly and professionally. Meanwhile, I had information but lacked knowledge. That's a huge difference. Here's what I learned about the difference between information and knowledge. Information is what can be found. Knowledge is what you have absorbed through study and practice. Wisdom is what you acquire by applying knowledge in practice. In a crisis, you need knowledge and wisdom. Information alone will not save you. Consider how much time you spent gathering resources compared to how much you actually gained from them. Be honest with yourself. How many of these books have you read cover to cover? How many of these videos have you actually watched and then applied what they taught? How many of these documents have you studied and taken notes on? If you're like most people, the answer is not very high. We gather information as if building a fortress, thinking that having it makes us safe. But information that you haven't absorbed is just data taking up space. The solution is simple. but requires discipline. With each new piece of information you add to your library, promise yourself to truly absorb it before moving on to the next. I completely changed my approach to learning. Now, if I get a book about edible plants, I don't just read it. I take notes. I go outside and try to identify the plants. I create flashcards for memorization. I test myself. I actually eat the plants I find to make sure I can identify them correctly. This book can sit on the shelf for months until I work through it properly. The same goes for skills. If I watch a video on building a shelter from trash, I go out and build it. I sleep in it. I find out what works and what doesn't. I make mistakes in safe conditions where the cost of failure is low. Thus, when it really matters, my body knows what to do, even if my mind is under stress. One more thing. Digital information is useful until it becomes inaccessible. Your phone battery is dead. The power is out. The hard drive is broken. If all your knowledge is locked behind dead electronics, you have a problem. The most important skills and information should be in your head and hands through practice. Now I keep a small notebook with the most critical information handwritten: water purification ratios, first aid basics, navigation techniques, things I practiced but may need reminding. This notebook is worth more than the gigabytes of documents I have never read. Look at your own collection right now. How much of this have you truly absorbed? How much could you teach others without looking at sources? How much could you do in the dark, with cold hands and a racing heartbeat? This is your true knowledge base. Everything else is just dreams. Start perceiving information gathering as the first step, not the end goal. The end goal is competence. Competence arises from learning and practice. So stop gathering information and start taking action. Choose one skill or area of knowledge, master it, and then move on to the next. In the end, you will have a deep understanding of 10 things rather than a superficial knowledge of thousands. And when a crisis arises, it is this depth of knowledge that will help you survive. Remember, in an emergency, you will not rise to the level of your knowledge. You will sink to the level of your training. So, train. Don't just gather information. The fifth trap is the inability to practice and replenish one's supplies. This trap will catch everyone sooner or later, including me. You have prepared your supplies. You have everything necessary: an emergency evacuation backpack packed, a pantry filled, water stored. You have done everything right. But one day, when you really need it, you will find that all of this is useless. The batteries have corroded. The food is expired or spoiled. The water in the containers has gone bad. Your backpack weighs 40 pounds more than you remember, and you can't carry it even 100 yards. The saved clothes no longer fit you. The medicines are expired. The documents are outdated. Everything you hoped for has turned into useless junk. This happened to me in 2019. We faced the danger of a forest fire, and evacuation seemed inevitable. I grabbed my backpack, which I had packed 3 years ago, and threw it in the car. Later that night, when the immediate threat had passed, I decided to check what I had. It was a disaster. The water bottles had that nasty plastic taste. The energy bars had turned to stone. The batteries ran out. Half of the children's clothes no longer fit because, strangely, the children are growing. The medical supplies included medicines that expired 2 years ago. Important documents did not contain current insurance cards and medical information. The backpack itself emitted a musty smell from being stored in the garage for so long. If we truly had to rely on this backpack, we would be in serious trouble. I spent hundreds of dollars and hours preparing it, only to completely ignore it afterward. It was then that I realized that readiness is not something done once. It's a lifestyle. It's constant maintenance and practice. This is what most people misunderstand about rotation and maintenance. They think it's just replacing expired products once a year. This is part of the process, of course, but it goes much deeper. Real rotation means regularly testing everything you rely on. Your emergency evacuation backpack needs to be checked at least once a quarter, and not just to look at it, but to really take out each item. Check. Test where possible. These batteries, insert them into the flashlight, and check if they work. This flint, try to start a fire with it. This clothing, try it on. These products, taste them. This water, drink a little. And here lies the difference between those who are truly prepared and those who just have equipment. You need to train with your supplies. Conduct full drills at least once a year. Pack your emergency backpack and go on a hike using only what is in it. Try to survive the weekend relying only on food supplies. Conduct a practice evacuation by gathering your belongings and leaving the house in 5 minutes. These lessons will teach you that sitting on the couch will never reveal the truth. You will discover that your backpack is too heavy. You will realize that you packed 3 unnecessary items and none that are critically important. It will become clear to you that your planned method of cooking actually doesn't work. You will learn what your family can handle and what they cannot. I conduct training exercises with my family twice a year. We choose weekends and treat them like a real emergency. No regular food, no normal electricity, only what we have prepared. We are using our reserve water. We cook using emergency methods. We sleep in our gear. At first, the children didn't like it. Now they are looking forward to these weekends because it feels like camping. These practical activities have revealed many problems. We found out that our water filter works too slowly, and we need a second one. We realized that our camping stove is inconvenient to use, and decided to switch to another model. We noticed that my wife gets cold much faster than I do, and she needs more insulation in her sleeping bag. We figured out which products we really like and which we would prefer not to eat even when hungry. An important part is also stock rotation. The rule is simple. What comes in first goes out first. Place new products at the back and use the old ones at the front. But you really need to use them. If you don't regularly eat from your supplies and replenish what you've eaten, it's not a rotation system, but just things that slowly spoil. I now have a rotation calendar. January is for emergency backpacks. February is for medical supplies. March is for water supplies and so on. It sounds like a lot of work, but each check takes only about an hour and helps avoid situations where something lies idle for years. The same goes for documents. Every year, I update my emergency file with current insurance information, medical records, copies of identification, and contact lists. I update maps considering new roads or changes. I update family photos for identification. This is a boring, unremarkable job, but it is absolutely necessary. Battery maintenance is also very important. I learned this from experience, facing device corrosion. Now all my batteries are stored separately from devices and checked every 3 months. I put a date on the packaging and replace them before they expire. I have both regular and rechargeable batteries for different needs. Stock rotation of water is probably the most overlooked. Stored water is not eternal. Even in sealed containers, especially transparent ones, algae or a plastic taste can appear. I empty and refill my water supplies every 6 months. It's unpleasant, but I've seen what dirty water looks like when it's forgotten for 2 years, and I'm not going to drink it in an emergency. That's the harsh truth. If you're not ready to maintain and practice with your supplies, you're not actually prepared. You just spent money on things that will let you down at the crucial moment. Preparation is not a purchase, but a commitment. It requires constant effort. There are no shortcuts. But here's the good news. Once you integrate rotation and practice into your daily life, it will become second nature. This will cease to be a duty and become part of your regular routine. You will sleep more soundly knowing that, in a critical moment, everything you rely on will indeed work because you have tested it. So, look at your supplies right now. When was the last time you checked them? When was the last time you really used them? When was the last time you practiced with them? If the answer is months or years, you have work to do. Don't wait for an emergency to find out what's broken. Know this now, while you still have the chance to fix it. Preparation is not just acquired and forgotten. It is tested, maintained, practiced, and proven. This is the difference between being prepared and just feeling prepared. So, here are 5 traps that sound like common sense, but actually undermine your preparedness. If you've fallen into any of them, don't blame yourself. I've fallen into all of them too. The preparedness community as a whole also falls into them. These traps are widespread because they seem right, and there is an entire industry selling you solutions. But now you know better. Now you can look at your supplies with honest eyes and fix what is broken. Start developing skills before buying new gear. Test your food supplies and learn to cook with them. Build your financial foundation. Study the information you've gathered and keep everything in order through regular practice and rotation. Preparation is not about having the most or spending the most money. It's about creating real capability. It's about making oneself resilient through knowledge, skills, and tested systems. It's about being honest about what is likely to happen and preparing for it, rather than fantasies. Every time I make a new purchase for preparation or add something to my plans, I run these 5 traps through my mind. Am I buying a skill or just things? Will I really use this? Does it solve a real threat or just look cool? Have I learned everything I need? Will I maintain it properly? These questions saved me thousands of rubles and countless hours. I want you to be truly prepared, not just feel that way. This means doing hard work that doesn't look impressive on social media. It means practicing in your yard, not just watching videos. This means using food supplies for dinner instead of letting them go to waste. It means checking your gear quarterly, even when it's boring. It means building financial security before buying tactical gear. These things don't look attractive. This is not the most exciting content, but it distinguishes those who can handle real emergencies from those who have expensive collections of unused gear. Stay calm, confident, and most importantly, honest with yourself about what truly prepares you. If this video made you rethink preparation, like it. Comment on which trap was most relevant for you. Subscribe, as I will continue to share practical and honest preparation tips based on real experience, not marketing tricks or fear-mongering. Remember, preparation is about calmness, not panic.